writing something, I'm like, damn, that was good. Like, and like, but at the same time, it's like, I don't write for the sake of, I don't write for the sake of monetization, and I don't write for the sake of other people. Does it mean that I won't monetize my writing eventually? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that the purpose of my writing is not to monetize. And I think when you're, if you are not writing for the sake of writing, in my opinion, if you're not writing for the sake of writing, then you should think twice about why. It's just like creating art. If you're not creating art for the sake of creating, because we're all put on this earth to create something. We're all put on this earth to contribute something. In order to contribute, we create, whether it's, creating, vegetables from a garden from seeds, or whether it's whether your gardening is on a piece of paper, or whether, your gardening is on a canvas. We're here to create. And so if you're not creating for the sake of creating, you have to think about why you're creating that one thing. And that's just my personal opinion. There are people who will create art for the sake of making money, but I think that they're creating art for the wrong reasons. But that's my opinion again. But it's evolved into what you're doing now, So I mean, again, that was just kind of my opinion. But by the same token, if in your heart your goal was not to help other people, you wouldn't be here, And so this is kind of like, the book was just the seed you planted, but this is what's kind of blooming at this point. And so you can't really, don't stop the momentum. I don't see that you're doing that. But at the same time, sometimes our reasons can evolve into something that's meant for the greater good of all. And I think that's kind of what's happened here, So, yeah, Pacific Northwest MS Friends, yep. And when we were supposed to meet, we were actually supposed to have lunch the day you met Gary Vee. I'm so glad you said, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm glad not that I didn't want to meet you, but I'm glad for you. You know what I mean? And how all of that has worked out. And I was totally cool with that, because everything, the way things happen are the way things happen. But I'm glad that we're finally getting a chance to talk today. And maybe another time, if you're ever in town, just give me a holler. Oh, wow. Before the pandemic, it was thriving pretty hardcore. There's the OHSU has a brown bag lunch, I think, every month, where they have like a speaker from the MS community, usually like a neurologist or a specialist or something like that. And like he or she will come and address certain things that are of concern in the MS community. There's also, of course, the pharmaceutical dinners. Whether you're on meds or not, you can go. They talk a lot about the meds, but then after, you do have a doctor or a specialist to answer questions. I mean, we had a pretty thriving MS community in Portland, Oregon. Seriously, before the pandemic. And now it looks like a lot of things are happening online, via Zoom or and things like that. Personally, I'm looking forward to things getting back to normal if, they can keep everything under control in terms of COVID. I'm not, rushing to get back, but I'm looking forward to when things do return back to normal. But yeah, the MS community in Portland we're pretty tight. It's a pretty big community here, pretty active.
Right on. Yeah, that's what I've seen on. That's what I've seen in the Facebook group, the Pacific Northwest MS Facebook group, and there's another one. I don't know. I thought there was another one down there, another Facebook group. But
there's a few.
Yeah,
there's a few. I think there's Adventures in MS. There's that one. There's MS Without DMD, but that's everywhere. There are a couple different groups that are here. if you really want to know kind of what's going on, Pacific Northwest MS Friends is probably like your one-stop shop for all things MS when it comes to dinners and activities and things like that.
Yeah.
Not that the other groups don't do that, but I think Pacific Northwest MS Friends pretty much has their thumb on the pulse.
Yeah. That's what I've gathered from looking at a couple of the other groups that are down in that area, is like Pacific Northwest MS Friends. That's the hookup right there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I know it's it seems, it's been a little while since I was in that group on Facebook, or, actually online in that group. But I did meet Rick and Kim from that group. I met them when I was on my road trip. They happened to be going to an outdoor concert and happened to having dinner, barbecuing or whatever. So I messaged them and said, "Hey, I'm in town, I'll meet you there." Or they said, "Come on over." So I met them there, and yeah, that was real cool. And then I met them up here in Olympia. They drove up here for some MS talk and dinner at a restaurant. And so I met them there. That was pretty cool. But yeah, it is a pretty tight-knit community, just getting, having that bond, having that in common, living with the same, living with the same disease. And, it's like knowing how we go through life with it, or at least having an inkling how the other person's going with it, since it is a snowflake disease and everyone's got it a little different.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what I really enjoy about Pacific Northwest MS Friends and any MS group that I'm actually involved with is the fact that we don't sit around and woe is me.
Yeah.
Like that's not even it. It's more like we have issue, and actually, like, let me backtrack. The MS community is probably, like, we're a smart bunch, like all of us, not just Pacific Northwest MS Friends, but just we have to know what myelin is. You know what I mean? we if you don't know science, you learn it as an MS patient. At least in terms of how it relates to multiple sclerosis. You're learning it as you go.
Yeah.
And I think what I really enjoy about being affiliated with, others that are diagnosed with the same thing, is that we all have an unspoken understanding of what each other goes through. So we don't have to, explain why we're not on a cane or why we're not riding a scooter. We don't have to explain that. We don't have to explain why we're having it that day. We can just say we're not having a good MS day. Okay, is there anything I can do? Is there anything that you need? There's no explanation involved. And so we can all sit around and we can laugh and we can cry and we can joke together without feeling sorry for each other, because this is just how we exist. We don't have to have sympathy for each other. We have empathy for each other, which is a difference.
Yeah.
I've walked in your shoes in some way, so I understand where you are. And based on that, that is kind of the foundation for all of us, and that is where our joking comes from, whether it's MS related or not. That is where our closeness comes from, whether we like each other or not. There is that mutual understanding of this is where we are, and I wish no harm on you because this is where we come from. So
yeah, definitely, it's that common bond and empathy. That's definitely become a empathy has definitely become not necessarily the prime thing in my life, but it's become one of the forefront things, is having empathy for others. I know, it's like having empathy for fellow MSers, like we're talking about. And, in my case, having empathy for fellow brain injury survivors,
Yeah.
and it's just like, and other facets of my life, and it's just like knowing that, maybe not knowing exactly what they're going through, but
having an idea.
yeah, having an idea of feeling the same thing at one time or another,
Mm-hmm.
because we deal with the same general disease.
Yeah.
And
I think empathy is really important for human existence. I mean, I believe that we've all been put on this earth for relationships, and how we relate to one another. And we can't really truly relate to one another if we don't attempt to feel empathy for someone. Sympathy is kind of like a class system almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I feel sorry for you, but that doesn't really give anybody any kind of license to feel superior. And I think sympathy is kind of like this veiled superiority type of position that people have, whereas empathy kind of push you on the same level as the person that you're talking to. And I would much rather try to feel empathy for people, or try to look and see, okay, I may not know exactly what they've, like you said, I may not know exactly what they've gone through, but in a way I can sort of relate because this is where I've been. So I try not to use the word sympathy, I try not to, because to me that's just a throwaway word. That's something that people use when they are not capable of feeling empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, a saying just came to mind, but I don't think a saying about sympathy being between two words in the dictionary just came to mind, but I don't think I'll say it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like vulgar, but anyway, I don't think I should say that on the air.
Maybe you can share it in a DM.
Yeah, I'll send it to you in a message.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but definitely empathy over sympathy any day. It's, yeah, I totally relate with that, because it's like sympathy, in thinking about it, sympathy just, it's sympathy is a good thing in a respect, but then it's like, it just, I don't know.
But eventually, like, sympathy doesn't require action, though.
Yeah, exactly. And just sort of seems to, drag one down to that, drag one down to feeling, that, oh, I'm sorry, and just sort of a downtrodden feeling. Whereas, empathy, it's like, okay, let's, equal the playing field here.
Yeah. And to me, that's the difference. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
Because you can feel sorry for me all damn day, but what are you going to do about it? Whereas empathy, almost like, you can have empathy and not act, but if you have empathy, how can you not act? With empathy, it's kind of even asking the question, is there anything I can do?